Hello, religion thinkers. In this video, we'll talk about religious trilemma, a difficult choice of three philosophical views. I'm Dr. James Rowell. I received my PhD from the University of Pittsburgh, and I have a forthcoming book titled The Meaning of World Religions. At a beautiful dawn or sunset, we may reflect on the wonders of nature, how perfect it may seem, almost like a painting. A soft moment of personal pleasure can become a philosophical moment. We ask, did God make this? And we have three choices. First, theism, to believe God or a creator did make the world. Second, we have atheism, to disavow that and perhaps say that the world just evolved. Or third, agnosticism, to remain unsure or unconvinced by either argument. I call this trilemma, a tough choice between three options. Now, Blaise Pascal, who lived a tragically short but influential life, believed we made a wager. We could choose not to believe and get some short-term good in this life, but risk eternal damnation. Or we could choose to believe and get the possible benefits of an eternal life. It is a striking option, but in our world today, the options aren't quite so easy. After all, we have more than two religious options and holy texts to choose from. Jews have the Tanakh, Christians have the Holy Bible, Muslims the Quran, and the Dhammapada is just one of the Buddhist texts. The Hindus cherish the Bhagavad Gita, so which text or tradition is correct? And there are many other options on the table to choose from. So let's return to our three doors to simplify for the moment. Let us return to trilemma. It is certainly not an easy choice to make. I would argue that atheism may seem very compelling to the senses, but not too appealing to most people. Agnosticism is a very rational and sound alternative, but it is not decisive on the question. Theism, finally, is very attractive to us, but also very difficult to argue about, to find something we can definitively agree upon. Trilemma is one thing I talk about in the Meaning of Religion book, so let's take a look at the alternatives. First, let's look at atheism. Now, you may not be a fan of Sigmund Freud or Karl Marx, but they are two striking atheists of modern times. Atheism is compelling to the senses because we know definitely that we are mortal, no arguing that. People die and we do not come back. Or do we? There are stories about people surviving death and coming back, but not all of us may be convinced by them. Yet while atheism has a lot of forceful evidence, namely our belief in mortal life, I think many would say that it is not so attractive because we would like to be hopeful and imaginative and think that there is something more to this life. So that is why I say atheism may be compelling, but not necessarily appealing. Second, let us take a look at agnosticism. Charles Darwin, the famous father of evolution, was very torn by his scientific and religious beliefs, and identified with agnosticism ultimately. One of Darwin's advocates and staunch defenders, T.H. Huxley, who is depicted on the left, was also agnostic. What more rational choice could you make, given that we have limited minds and abilities to perceive? Indeed, I would argue that the humbled agnostic position is a very rational alternative, but it does not make a committed choice. After all, in a hard-nosed way, one might argue that either there is some truth in religion or there really isn't. While it is rational to be not committed in the absence of final evidence, it may also be difficult to remain uncommitted. Thirdly, there is theism. Now, this is easily an attractive choice. There are many attractive religious ideas and traditions. I think at heart dearly most of us would like to believe in some way that we survive death, or that there is some godly or divine presence that made the world and looks after us in this universe. This is also a very difficult position to argue, however, because there are so many faiths, they do not share the same religious texts or identical religious ideas. So there is no definitive ground, religiously speaking, on which we can absolutely agree. This trilemma can leave us puzzled. But that is maybe as it should be, because figuring things out and making sense of things is half of the pleasure. Is doing a crossword puzzle or any game a challenge when you already have all the answers and don't have to work it out for yourself? Is winning a basketball game any fun if the defenders just stand there in one place and never challenge you? Puzzles can be hard, but they keep the mind healthy and vigorous. A hard-nosed scientist would agree with that. So might a theist also argue that God did not want us to have all the answers, because then we would be cheated of finding them on our own. Some religious persons like to feel that they have the slam-dunk answer. My text or my tradition says it all, and I don't need to listen to others. Perhaps the arrogance of science can also sweep all the pieces of religion off the table and claim that they do not matter. For my part, I have never been pleased with the answer smug, as opposed to the thoughtful answer well dug. Well dug, that is, in terms of taking time to think about things and see how they might be rational or compelling. It is why I've written The Meaning of World Religions and look forward to its publication. Puzzles are often hard. We scrape for an eternity to find the right piece of meaning in our lives, and when we find it, we celebrate and put the puzzle piece in its place. I would add finally that atheists, theists, and agnostics all have a valuable role to play as puzzle makers, making meaning of this life, and that we should not smugly dismiss them simply because we disagree. Thank you for listening, religion thinkers. Please subscribe and stay tuned for the next video.